Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bleav in Bengals, presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots, and I'm joined by our Cincinnati Bengals insider, Charlie Goldsmith. And Charlie, look, the Cincinnati Bengals, they score 45 points on a trip down to South Florida. It must be something about the weather because this was a confident team. It was a team that looked like they had something to play for. And sometimes just suiting up for the love of the game is good enough. And when I saw T. Higgins playing in this game, I said, whoa, this is a team that's still playing for something, playing for pride. What did you get a sense they were playing for?
I think T. Higgins kind of set the tone for the day in a lot of ways when you looked at the fact that he had had 2 concussions in a short window, and yet what it meant to him to come back, to fight back, to power through. And not just that, there haven't been a ton of chances recently to see all of the offensive pieces together. Brown, Pirine, Gesicki, all the tight ends, Yosevich, Higgins, Chase, and to see everyone, except for maybe Mitch Tinsley, but no disrespect to Mitch, to see everyone have their moments. Literally, Drew Sample, huge play, Gesicki, everyone had a chance to shine, and it was a perfect example of how deep this offense is.
It really was. I mean, I just thought it was, and especially the game by Chase Brown, we can talk about a little bit more. I thought it was a showcase of what potentially, if you pay too much attention to Jamar Chase, too much attention to T. Higgins, Chase Brown can really be a weapon within this offense. And I think he showed it. I think it was his 7th game this season with 100 yards from scrimmage. What was his talent indicative of in terms of what you saw from him in the game down in Miami?
Well, what's pretty cool is that they've really opened up the versatility of the offense, and they're doing things like 21 personnel with 2 running backs, more than they've ever done. Chase Brown's in the slot. Chase Brown's motioning out wide, and that opens things up for Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase feasts underneath because also you have the fear of T. Higgins beating them over the top, which he did. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then they don't quite have enough sound coverage against Gesicki on a seam over the middle. I mean, this is an elite offense, and the pieces do fit together pretty perfectly, and it was all humming perfectly on Sunday.
What has Zach said about, look, there were times when we never saw Joe Burrow under center. And now we're starting to see more of him under center. We're starting to see them embracing different styles of running, not just the shotgun, inside zone plays that's so familiar. There are some new elements to this offense that is starting. You can tell Zach's starting to play around with some things, and it's paying off in a huge way.
It's a testament to the versatility that this offense has developed really over the last 3 years. They used to line up in 11, run the ball out of the gun, try to stay efficient with their run game, and then take their shots. Then they realized it was an offense that had to become more versatile, more variable, more multiple. And so you see them doing everything from that classic LSU style 11 offense to they literally line the ball up under center with Cam Grandy at fullback and Drew Sample as a blocking tight end for a big touchdown run up the middle where they overpowered Miami. They have all of these layers and levers, and that's a production of the depth, the versatility, and just the pure talent that this offense has.
I know Zach mentioned that this offense is playing, and the team really is playing with a great deal more confidence. What more can you tell us about that in terms of what's coming out of his meeting with the media members?
Yeah, well, Zach, it wasn't even just us. It was the post-game celebration in the locker room in Miami when he made it an everyone gets a game ball game. And to do that, I believe for the first time since 2023, in a game where you're eliminated, was a sign to me of how important it was to him that this team respond a certain way and play a certain style and start developing a certain confidence and killer instinct, he said, and what it meant to him that they went out and did it. So you have a literal piece of proof in a game ball that this meant a lot to this team and that it impressed Zach how the Bengals did it.
What did it tell you when we looked up in this game And the Cincinnati Bengals offense literally scored on 6 straight drives in the second quarter, and then the third quarter, and then that first drive in the fourth quarter. 6 consecutive possessions where they were able to put some points on the board. I don't count the little, just a few plays before halftime, but really when they had the ball and had time, they scored on 6 straight drives in this game.
Yeah, Miami didn't know what to do. They started playing a lot of, they had Jack Jones on T. Higgins. They played a lot of single high. They weren't really too concerned about getting beat deep. And then that changed when Higgins went off. And then the Bengals had an answer for the next counter from the Dolphins and an answer to the next counter from the Dolphins. And it was someone different every time. You thought you have the play blocked up on a double play, I Bleav, with Chase and Higgins getting double teamed, and you forget to guard Drew Sample, and he scoots around the corner for a big catch. So they have all the answers. They have all the weapons. This is one of the best offenses in the entire NFL.
And that's why when people start to clamor, look, I get it. The team 3 straight years not making the playoffs, but you've got to be very careful what you ask for, right? There's not going to be any changes at the coaching staff. I'm sorry. Zach Taylor is a phenomenal play caller. I think he runs the offense in a phenomenal way. What was this, like maybe the 15th time since the start of last season where they've scored over 30 or more points? Now they're 8-7 in those 15 games, but that's not what's wrong with this team. So I think Zach continues. The show that they play hard for their head coach, the fact that he is the offensive play caller and they're productive on offense, scoring on 6 straight drives, I would have to assume that his job is safe, as well it should be.
And you look at what the Bengals want to be, even organizationally, it's building around Burrow and putting Burrow in the best situation to be successful. And Burrow is able to operate at a specific level and make specific styles of throws and have confidence playing a certain brand of football in this scheme, in this system. Burrow's shown that he can be the best version of himself here. And the Miami game was another example of that.
They were 6 for 6 down inside the red zone. Joe Burrow was smiling in between possessions. Game was over. He was elated. What does that say about him? It seemed like he wanted to show maybe his happier side as well.
And the fact that he didn't want to shut it down, he still feels payoff being in these moments. He still feels satisfaction, the reward for the hard comeback process that he went through. And he wants to be a part of the solution. He wants to be the part of bringing guys along with him, expediting the process of rebuilding this team and redeveloping this sort of level that they need to reestablish, which would be a championship level. Burrow wants to be there for all of it. And to get to experience all that and have fun under the sun in Miami, that's clearly a really satisfying feeling for him.
And look, the Bengals defense, I think, deserved pat on the back. Outside of the run by Devon Achane, where he kind of ripped off right through the middle of the defense, I thought they played pretty good. I mean, the forcing of turnovers on consecutive drives, Myles Murphy, guys like Barrett Carter and Jordan Battle, forcing turnovers, DJ Turner, once again, whether it's in coverage. He was phenomenal in coverage, by the way. He was phenomenal in forcing fumbles like he did in that Buffalo game and did it again against Miami. What can you say about the way that these guys are now finding that they have a nose for the football and that they're getting these turnovers to help set up the offense for that frequent barrage of scoring that we saw in the middle portion of the game?
Well, as cliche as it sounds, there is a developing confidence. Hey, we Bleav we're going to come out on top in adverse situations, like short yardage situations, like red zone situations, like goal line situations. There's a reason why when guys talk about kind of the improvement of the defense, they always point back to the 9-play goal line stand at home against New England. And they started to feel that, experience that. And now they're able to play with a different type of energy in those moments in a way that's really real and shows itself in big moments.
Yeah, I just thought it was really impressive, their ability to come up with the football, to make plays, whether it's interceptions, whether it's forced fumbles, and then to be able to to get on the ball when the ball is on the ground. When it was loose, there were 11 guys that were swarming around and flying around. That's how you end up intercepting all tips and overthrows. That's how you end up pouncing on every loose ball. You've got to be hustling, flying around, and really having fun playing football in order to make those plays happen. You know what, Charlie? I looked up and I saw 3 different corners out there that I hadn't seen that combination. They kept the starting safeties out there in Geno Stone and Jordan Battle, but I looked up and I saw DJ Ivey. I saw Josh Newton, and then I also saw Jalen Davis in the nickel. And all 3 guys, I said, whoa, what's going on? Are we giving guys a shot here? And then I listened to Zach Taylor's press conference on Monday, and he mentioned Jalen Davis. He said that this is a guy that has steadily gotten better, and that he had some of the rare combinations that Mike Hilton had at that position, and that really caught my attention. What more can you tell us about the way they're giving the younger defensive backs opportunities to play in these final games?
Yeah, well, Jalen Davis has just become a full-time starter on this team, and he had a really awesome pick against Waddle on Sunday. But maybe even the biggest play he made was a tackle on a pitch for a third down stop. And he's a guy who's brought an important level of maturity and consistency and football IQ and savvy, and helping make life easier for guys around him. And that's really rubbed off on that entire room. And they're hoping a lot of those young guys look up to Jalen Davis as an example of how to do it.
I just think it's phenomenal. And whenever you can point to young players who are growing, who are starting to consistently make plays, I think that's a real big point of emphasis. And I know it's going to be a lot of discussion this offseason as well. Myles Murphy making more plays, finding the ball, making more plays on the quarterback. What more can you tell us about his growth and development?
Al Golden said this today. He said that Myles, kind of around the middle of the season, he could feel him start to set the edge and play with the physicality. But now he's setting the edge and finishing the play, and you're seeing it show up in the stat sheet more. And there's just an extra gear that Myles is able to tap into as a finisher. And his stock of any Bengals player has improved the most over the last 2 months. He's a guy who has squarely put himself in position to be a starter on next year's team, and another guy who guys can look to as an example of how to kind of progress in your development.
What got into Shamar Stewart? What can you say about his play? I know we saw maybe as much of him in this game as we saw him in any game. What are the coaches saying about his play?
He just needs reps, and I think he had one play that showed up on Sunday. Nothing really flashy, though. A pretty quiet game from him. But on the whole, he just missed so much time, and he was hurt, and he was back. He didn't feel 100%. And he got hurt again. He just needs to be out there. Let's just let him on his own pace develop. And they're going to show a lot of patience to him as he kind of goes through his experience being a bit behind schedule.
Any thoughts about just letting him play as much as you can in these final 2 games?
Yeah, well, Trey Hendrickson and Joseph Osai are out. So Stewart's in there. Now they're not going to play him every single snap because they have so many packages, and they don't want to, from what I understand, overload him. Hey, get ready to play the 7-5-3-1 first down, second down, third down versus 7 different. Now they're going to try to find some spots, and that's what they've done. Hey, play these packages where I think you can build some confidence and let it develop from there.
Joe Burrow hit a milestone. He became the 5th fastest player to pass for 20,000 yards in his career, 75 games in his 6th season. And really a stellar performance, over 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in this game. What can you say about this milestone accomplishment by Joe Burrow on Sunday?
Well, it was fitting that he reached a touchdown milestone kind of on a fade to T. Higgins, and it was a perfect moment of how the quarterback makes the receiver better and the receiver makes the quarterback better. And it was just Burrow even said this, it felt a lot like 2021. And when you look at the passing yard stat, you really feel kind of the history that these guys have together. And he's been doing it with Jamar and T being his top 2 guys for that long. And there, it's not just a Burrow stat. It's the entire passing game with T and with Jamar, of course, playing a central role in that. And it was kind of fitting that Burrow reached 2 major milestones with passing yards and with touchdowns on a day where the entire ensemble was together.
Yeah, what can you say about Dylan Fairchild, a young rookie, seemingly is going to get through the entire season? Not easy to start every single game as a rookie, and I know there's been some growing pains along the way. What are coaches saying about his growth and development during his rookie season?
Yeah, Dan Pitcher spoke about that today, and what Dan Pitcher said was, I'll get to his answer in a second, but this was Dan's first time kind of investing, or let me try this again. The Bengals reoriented their offensive coaching staff during the offseason. New offensive line coach Scott Peters came in. And as a part of that, Dan also got much more involved with the offensive line. And so he played a very major role in evaluating and identifying and then developing Fairchild. And what Dan Pitcher said today was, seeing the person, evaluating who he was as a person from a character standpoint, and then seeing him be that guy and seeing that translate to the NFL and just how good he's been to work with and how mature and how professional he's been has been such a rewarding part to Dan for this process, is what he said. And the pass protection's been solid. It's been about as good of a year as Amarius Mims had last season. You'll take this 100 times out of 100 from your guard.
Yeah. Now, having said that, it seems like, well, we know the running game improved as the season has gone on. I think the overall protection has improved for our quarterback play as the season has gone on. I think these last few stretch of games is about the best protection I've seen for the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? Seriously. Yep. I mean, in quite some time, we haven't had this kind of stretch where the quarterback has been really protected and the run game has been going. And what is that? What would you lend that to? Is it the continuity and the consistency of the same 5 guys now, and just maybe being under the new offensive line coach maybe for a period of time now? To what do we attribute that to? And does that give us even more hope that the same 5 guys back together in 2026 could help this team really take another jump offensively?
Yeah, the continuity is kind of the whole point of the Bengals offense. And we've seen that with the passing game, but less so with the running game. And to be able to bring 4 of these guys are under contract. I think there's, Reisner, they'll probably have a chance to retain. Being able to bring those guys back, having Chase Brown in this scheme for multiple years and adding something it feels like into his game every season is something that's really meaningful. And every year also defenses change around the league, and you need to learn from that and figure out what your counter to the counter is going to be. And truthfully, in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2025, and 2024 as well, as I go through it in my head, you can point to examples of things the Bengals found out about the run game during the season that they then adjusted and had success with. And you can squarely say that 2025 is another one of those years where the midseason adjustments worked.
Midseason adjustments and the overall continuity of just how they're playing. I like them getting Joe Burrow under center. I think it helps the offensive line. I think it helps with the pin and pull game. Offensive linemen need angles to block. And just coming straight off is not the best way, but down blocking, pulling and pinning players, I think that really does help the run game. And Chase Brown, I got to tell you, the juice that he brings, it seems like this coaching staff loves his talent. He seems to be a really good fit for the offense and what they want to do. Just one last thing before I move to the next question as we look ahead to the final 2 games. One last comment in terms of what they are seeing and what the future for Chase Brown within the Bengals offense.
There's really not much he can't do anymore. And they've leaned further and further and further into his strengths, even at the expense sometimes of plays for some of their other premier playmakers, because of how much belief and how much confidence in Chase Brown there is.
He runs bigger than he is. He's not that big of a guy, but he packs a punch, and he's not an easy guy to get on the ground. He's a fighter. I mean, reminds me of a Giovanni Bernard and of a James Brooks. I don't know if you remember James Brooks, Charlie. He was the most for a small back. He was the most ornery, testy, feisty ball carrier you could ever run against. I watch him drag bigger, badder defenders up and down the field, just trying to tackle him, and they couldn't tame him one bit.
And the Bengals, are able to do so much because they have a running back who's that good at everything. And it all goes back to the point we keep cycling back to, the versatility within this offense. The Dolphins try to stop one thing, another problem pops up, then another problem pops up, and that's what makes the Bengals offense so elite.
Yeah, he does give the offense great versatility. All right, let's look ahead to the next couple of weeks. I want to talk first and just get your thought on this upcoming game. The Arizona Cardinals are coming to town, and this is a team that I think they've lost 7 straight games, but don't write them off, Charlie. Jacoby Brissett's been really good at quarterback for this team. That's why they continue to keep him in there. Kyler Murray, I don't know what they're doing with him, but clearly he's healthy by now. But they've decided to leave Jacoby Brissett in because he's lighting it up every single week.
It's a team that's going to keep you honest. And now they've got some injuries. We'll see the shape they're in and how that'll impact what the Bengals' approach will be. But, you look at their tight end as well, McBride, who's one of the most explosive tight ends in the league.
Right.
You can be pretty sure that Arizona is going to try to take advantage of the Bengals' weakness in that area. So that's going to be an important matchup that the Bengals will need to lock down.
I have the Cardinals. I mean, they had a great rushing attack yesterday. I think they led the Falcons in rushing in that game on Sunday. So this is a team that can run the football. Don't be surprised if they come in and now make it a fight, because they tend to do that. Now they've lost 7 in a row, but those games they've made it very competitive as well. Last game, the Cleveland Browns, AFC North division. The Browns, for whatever reason, are always a tough game for the Bengals. Look, Jim Schwartz's defense is still one of the best. And it looks like Myles Garrett is going to set the single season sack record. It's currently 22 and a half sacks held by TJ Watt and Michael Strahan combined. I think he only needs 1 sack to break that record in the last 2 games. Nonetheless, by the time we play him in that final week, he may be looking to add to that total. Just your thoughts on that season finale game against the Cleveland Browns, whose defense almost seemed to always give the Bengals trouble.
Yeah, it's one of the best in the league. And when I think of that game, I'll think of, Myles Garrett trying to put the finishing touches on how many sacks can he reach. Right. So he'll have as much to talk about emptying the tank. He'll throw everything he has at the Bengals. And even if it's 1 against 11, he'll have a chance to keep Cleveland in that game. So how the Bengals plan looks against Myles Garrett's going to be a final interesting test heading into the offseason.
I can see Zach Taylor really challenging his offense, saying, guys, this is a really good test to really see exactly where we're at, to see what we can finish with and start with next season. Because playing against it's something about Jim Schwartz's defense. I think they're good, by the way, on their defensive line. I think they're good in their secondary. It's just a really good matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals offense to really test just how good they are at this point in the season. Is that a fair statement?
Sure. And again, it's also, an opportunity to kind of carry some of that momentum into the offseason. And is this going to be a team that if they can rattle off 2 more wins or 7 wins, that's not good. It's nowhere near good enough, but it's not bad when you look at kind of the history books. Or is it going to be a team that's a 5-win team at the end of the day that looks markedly worse? That's kind of what these guys are playing for.
Yeah, absolutely. Cincinnati Bengals were great on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. 45-21 was the final. They scored 40 points for the second time this season and scored on all six of their red zone possessions. I think it was just a phenomenal performance offensively. The defense forced 3 turnovers in the game. So they had a stellar performance as well. You might say, Charlie, this is one of the most complimentary style of games for the Cincinnati Bengals. Offense, defense, special teams, where everyone came away looking good. It must have been all smiles on the plane, even though they had to come back to colder temperatures.
Yeah, let's not forget special teams. 4 punts inside the 20 for Ryan Rico. They had a new punt returner and kick returner, Keyshawn Williams, a guy who got to the building on Tuesday after being waived by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who popped a bit in his first game with the team. So I'd like to shout out Joe Giles Harris, who's had a very nice season on special teams. All around, there was a lot to like about the performance.
All right, Charlie. Hey, thank you for taking the time to join us. We appreciate your reporting, stellar as usual. We want to thank everyone for joining us on this wonderful Bleav in Bengals podcast presented by FanDuel. We hope to see you next time, everyone.